Usually when we look back at major technological revolutions, um, we associate them with a tremendous amount of noise.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Like, you think of the Industrial Revolution, and you immediately picture these massive steam engines, gears grinding, the physical heat and sweat of the assembly line. It's just loud.
right. It's a very visceral, unmistakable upheaval. You can literally hear the world changing around you.
Exactly. But you step into a modern corporate headquarters today, and that noise is entirely absent.
Yeah, completely silent.
We're in the middle of a disruption that is, frankly, arguably much larger in scale, yet it's just the quiet hum of servers in a data center, or, the clicking of keyboards.
And the macroeconomic data we're looking at today from Geostrategic Pulse frames this perfectly. I mean, they project that up to 30% of current hours worked globally could be automated by 2030.
30%, that is just staggering.
It really is. It's a silent restructuring of the global economy on a scale we haven't seen since we moved from agriculture to manufacturing.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring the mechanics behind that silent disruption. Specifically, how artificial intelligence is fundamentally rewiring the modern workplace.
Yeah, and we've got some great sources today.
We do. We are pulling from comprehensive business strategy reports, geopolitical analyses, and some truly fascinating academic research from a recent BS Lab International Symposium on Technology and Society.
And our mission here isn't to just speculate about, science fiction scenarios.
Right, no Terminators here.
Exactly. We are going to decode the underlying mechanisms of what this technology is actually doing to our workflows. We'll look at how it creates this dangerous psychological reliance and the specific strategies organizations are using to survive it.
And for you listening, whether you're prepping for a boardroom presentation or just trying to stay ahead of the curve, future-proof your career, today's topic is essential.
So to understand the human impact, I think we have to start with the architectural foundation. What are these systems actually doing?
Right, let's get into the mechanics.
The core mechanism is automation. But in the knowledge economy, it isn't a robotic arm welding a car chassis.
Yeah, it's not physical.
Right. It is the deployment of algorithmic systems to automate repetitive processes. Executing rule-based tasks with basically zero human intervention.
But executives often conflate the outcomes of this automation, don't they? Like specifically mistaking productivity for operational efficiency.
Oh, all the time. Yes. And that distinction is critical because they require entirely different strategies to implement.
Let's look at this through a systems analogy, rather than just talking about output. So productivity is about velocity and volume.
Okay. Right.
It's like having a highway where the speed limit is suddenly doubled. You're moving more cars from point A to point B in the exact same amount of time. You improve productivity.
Right. You're just doing more, faster.
Exactly. Efficiency, on the other hand, is like implementing a dynamic GPS system that actively reroutes those cars to entirely bypass traffic jams before they even form.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You might not be driving faster, but you've enhanced efficiency by eliminating the bleeding of wasted time and fuel.
And taking that productivity analogy into the real world, the sources highlight Amazon's global logistics network.
Oh yeah, the predictive logistics.
Right. They are not merely telling their warehouse staff to pick items faster to improve productivity. They are deploying advanced machine learning models that synthesize historical purchasing data, localized weather patterns, and even real-time social media trends.
Wait, social media trends?
Yeah, literally monitoring what people are talking about. So the system predicts that a specific zip code is going to see a spike in, say, umbrella purchases next Tuesday.
Because it knows the storm is coming.
Exactly. And it autonomously routes that inventory to the nearest fulfillment center while the cargo is literally still on a ship in the Pacific.
Wow.
That is AI driving massive productivity, essentially pulling the future into the present.
That's wild. But meanwhile, operational efficiency is about extreme resource optimization. And the Siemens predictive maintenance example from the strategy guide illustrates the how beautifully.
The acoustic sensors, right?
Yeah. They aren't just logging when a factory machine breaks down and then sending a repair crew faster. They have these acoustic sensors monitoring the turbines. The AI listens to the micro vibrations of the machinery.
So it's detecting acoustic anomalies at frequencies human ears can't even perceive.
Exactly. It recognizes the specific sound profile of a gear that is going to fail in 3 weeks. And then it schedules maintenance during planned downtime.
So it completely avoids the breakdown.
Right. By preventing catastrophic mid-shift failures, they reduce factory downtime by 20%. They aren't producing more turbines. They've simply stopped the hemorrhage of wasted capital to enhance efficiency.
But Siemens optimizing physical assets is one thing. The disruption accelerates wildly when AI begins optimizing cognitive assets.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets scary for office workers.
Right. Look at JP Morgan Chase. They deployed an AI platform specifically to ingest and analyze complex commercial credit agreements.
To streamline operations, basically.
Exactly. We are talking about natural language processing algorithms that can parse through hundreds of thousands of pages of dense legal text.
It's stuff that would take humans months.
Years even. It identifies specific liability clauses and risk exposures across 10,000 documents simultaneously. A cognitive task that historically consumed 360,000 hours of human lawyer time annually
360,000 hours.
is now executed by the system in a matter of seconds.
Which brings us to a massive friction point. I mean, if the algorithmic system handles the reading, the cross-referencing, and the risk identification in 3 seconds, the human lawyer's daily workflow is entirely hollowed out.
Yeah, their day-to-day job vanishes.
If the machine does the reading, what exactly does the human lawyer do all day now? They are no longer a document finder. They are forced to become a strategic negotiator.
And that shift is happening across every industry. Labor economists actually term this phenomenon skill-biased technological change.
Skill-biased, meaning it doesn't hit everyone the same way.
Precisely. The technology does not impact the workforce evenly. It acts as a wedge. Routine cognitive tasks, like basic contract review, data entry, or standard financial auditing, they face immediate displacement.
Because algorithms excel at pattern matching.
Right. But at the same time, this same technology exponentially increases the demand for non-routine, highly complex cognitive skills.
So it's creating jobs while destroying others.
Yes, which leads us to the skill gap.
And I really want to challenge the optimism around that transition, to be honest. I mean, the Geostrategic Pulse data projects the emergence of 92 million new global digital jobs by 2030 to support this new architecture.
92 million jobs sounds great on paper.
It does. But cross-reference that with a Eurostat finding in our sources. 44% of EU citizens currently lack basic digital skills.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a huge disconnect.
How do those two realities coexist? We aren't just looking at an HR problem here. We are staring down a massive geopolitical vulnerability. If half a continent's workforce cannot participate in this new digital economy, that 92 million job projection feels less like an opportunity and more like, well, an impending crisis of structural unemployment.
You are identifying the exact parameters of the modern skill gap. It is this terrifying chasm between the capabilities enterprise systems require today and the actual human capital available.
Right, and a nation's inability to bridge that gap directly correlates to its future GDP stagnation. They'll just lose global competitiveness.
But the academic research from the BS Lab Symposium adds an even deeper psychological layer to this crisis, one that goes beyond just lacking the right coding skills.
That's the cognitive dependency stuff.
Yes, they studied the cognitive impact on the workers who actually are using these systems daily.
This was easily the most alarming insight in the stack for me. We tend to focus entirely on the physical displacement of the worker, losing the job. But we ignore the degradation of the worker's executive function.
Yeah, we're literally losing our minds.
Exactly. If I rely on an AI assistant to summarize every 60-page brief into 3 bullet points, to draft all my emails and to generate my strategic roadmaps, I am fundamentally outsourcing my critical thinking.
Right. To support decision-making is one thing, but outsourcing it entirely means the neural pathways required for deep analytical synthesis they begin to atrophy.
Yeah, when the AI pre-filters all the options and just hands me a recommended decision, I am no longer actively making a choice. I am simply rubber stamping an algorithm's output.
And the BS Lab researchers found that this breeds incredible uncertainty and anxiety among workers.
I can imagine.
They begin to ask, if the system is doing the actual problem-solving, what is my intrinsic value in this organization?
It creates a profound crisis of autonomy.
It does. The academic literature resolves this tension by clearly delineating between automation and augmentation.
Okay, break that down for us.
So automation is substitution. The algorithm takes the task, you're replaced. Augmentation, though, is symbiosis.
Working together.
Right. The goal of augmentation isn't to replace the human brain. It is to offload the high-volume data processing so the human can elevate their focus to areas where algorithms fail entirely.
Like ethical judgment.
Exactly. Ethical judgment, contextual empathy, and lateral creative strategy. But, and this is the big catch, achieving that symbiosis requires a workforce capable of managing the algorithm.
Which loops us back to bridging that massive 44% skill gap.
Yep.
You cannot just fire half your workforce and try to hire unicorns in a hyper-competitive globalized labor market. The math just doesn't work. Survival dictates aggressive talent management and capital allocation toward upskilling and reskilling.
And we should really differentiate those two strategies, right? Because they get thrown around a lot.
Yeah, let's define them.
Reskilling is a horizontal move. It is taking an employee whose role has been entirely eliminated by automation.
Sure, a traditional assembly line inspector.
Right. And training them from scratch to develop new skills for a totally different job, like becoming a wind turbine technician.
Okay, so completely new job.
Yes. Upskilling, however, is vertical. It is taking that JP Morgan lawyer and training them in advanced data architecture so they can better manipulate the AI tool that is reviewing their contracts. They're still a lawyer, just an augmented one.
Amazon's Upskilling 2025 initiative is the perfect case study here. They committed hundreds of millions of dollars to teach their existing, non-technical workforce advanced software engineering and data science.
It's a massive investment.
It is, but from a purely financial perspective, it makes sense. It is significantly cheaper to invest $100,000 to upskill a trusted warehouse manager who already intimately understands Amazon's internal culture and, logistics quirks.
Than it is to engage in a bidding war for a fresh Stanford computer science grad who lacks that institutional knowledge.
Exactly. It helps them retain their workforce while adapting to change.
But Amazon has the balance sheet of a nation state.
True.
Small and mid-sized enterprises cannot single-handedly fund the retraining of the global workforce. This is why the geopolitical analysts from our sources stress that governments must intervene.
Well, absolutely.
If bridging the skill gap is a matter of national economic security, we need robust public-private partnerships. Governments must implement aggressive tax incentives for corporate training programs, and they have to fundamentally restructure university curricula to embed AI literacy across every discipline, not just computer science.
Because the velocity of this shift is unprecedented. The underlying theme across all these sources is adaptation as a brutal survival mechanism.
Yeah, you have to adapt to change.
Organizations and individuals have to develop a tolerance for continuous disruption. You have to become comfortable with the psychological friction of being a beginner again, over and over. You have to embrace change.
So transitioning from the individual psychology to the enterprise level, how does an organization actually orchestrate this without collapsing under the weight of the disruption?
That is the million-dollar question.
Which brings us to the strategic architecture of digital transformation. Now, this term is heavily diluted in corporate boardrooms.
Oh, for sure. It's a massive buzzword.
It's often misused to describe, just migrating to cloud storage or buying new software licenses.
Right. We bought an AI chatbot. We are digitally transformed.
Exactly, and that's just wrong. True digital transformation is the fundamental rewiring of a company's operational DNA to leverage technology as a core competitive advantage.
It changes how the company captures and delivers value. It drives innovation. But you can't just mandate that kind of architectural shift on a Monday morning.
Which is why enterprise playbooks mandate a phased implementation architecture. You never deploy a nascent stochastic system across core revenue-generating functions immediately.
That would be a disaster.
You begin with isolated pilot projects in low-risk environments. You rigorously assess not just the algorithmic accuracy, but the behavioral impact on the human operators.
Right.
And only after the friction points are smoothed out do you scale the architecture organization-wide.
But here is the massive trap that companies constantly fall into during that scaling phase. And I want to highlight this because it's so common. They confuse implementation with adoption.
Yes. They are entirely different things.
I've seen organizations burn $50 million on a state-of-the-art enterprise AI platform. The implementation is flawless. The servers are optimized. The APIs are integrated. The software is deployed to every laptop in the company.
Check, check, check.
But it fails completely because of a lack of adoption. If the middle managers do not trust the algorithmic output, or if the interface creates too much friction in their daily routine, they will passively reject it.
Oh, they absolutely will.
They will quietly go back to managing their teams on legacy Excel spreadsheets. And that $50 million is just gone.
Because adoption requires overcoming psychological inertia, the technology has to seamlessly integrate AI tools into the user's workflow. And by workflow, I mean the actual step-by-step sequence of how they execute a project.
Exactly.
If the AI disrupts the workflow without clearly demonstrating a reduction in the user's cognitive load, it will be abandoned. But when adoption is successful, the workflow doesn't just get faster, it fundamentally changes shape.
And the end state of that reshaped workflow brings us to the ultimate goal highlighted in our sources: collaboration.
Right, human and machine.
The healthcare diagnostic model is, I think, the purest distillation of this. In modern radiology, an AI model is fed thousands of historical MRI scans. When a new patient scan comes in, the algorithm analyzes the pixel density in seconds.
Identifying microscopic geometric anomalies that suggest, say, early-stage cellular mutation.
Right. Patterns a human retina might physically be incapable of detecting.
But the AI does not diagnose the patient.
Crucial point.
It acts as a highly specialized pattern recognition engine, highlighting the anomaly on the screen. The human radiologist then takes that output, cross-references it with the patient's complex medical history, their genetic markers, and nuanced lifestyle factors that the algorithm has zero context for.
The human doctor integrates the algorithmic probability with human context to make a definitive diagnosis,
Right.
and then uses human empathy to communicate that reality to the patient.
Right, you can't automate empathy.
No, you can't. Neither the machine nor the human could achieve that level of precision and care independently. That is the human-machine symbiosis the academic papers are pointing toward. It creates new opportunities for better care.
It is the synthesis of scale and judgment. We use the algorithm for scale and speed, and we reserve human intellect for judgment and strategy.
Well, let's pull all these threads together. We started by peeling back the mechanics of the silent revolution, dissecting how systems drive raw productivity through predictive logistics and operational efficiency through anomaly detection. We waded into the very real macroeconomic crisis of a widening skill gap, where the geopolitical demand for digital fluency is clashing with widespread workforce illiteracy.
That 44% number really sticks with you.
It really does. And then we examine the psychological risk of cognitive dependency, the danger of letting our critical thinking atrophy as algorithms assume our decision-making load.
Yeah.
Finally, we looked at the architectural response: aggressive upskilling and a phased digital transformation that prioritizes actual user adoption to achieve true human-machine collaboration.
And I think the foundational takeaway across all the geopolitical data, the business strategies, and the academic research is that attempting to compete against algorithmic speed is a losing battle.
It's impossible.
The future belongs to the individuals and organizations that master the friction of integrating these systems into their workflows to augment their own capabilities. Which raises a critical philosophical question for you, the listener, based on the BS Lab findings.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We frequently hear the axiom that AI won't replace you, but a professional utilizing AI will. But looking deeper into the neuroscience of cognitive dependency, the ultimate challenge is internal. As you increasingly integrate generative models and predictive analytics into your daily decision-making, how do you actively ensure that you are using the technology as a lens to sharpen your strategic vision, rather than allowing it to become a crutch that slowly replaces your critical thinking?
That is the perfect question to end on. Don't let your executive function go quiet. Take a critical look at your own workflow this week. Identify one high-volume, low-value task that you can offload to an automated system.
Just one task start.
Right, but more importantly, decide exactly what high-level strategic capability you are going to train your brain on with the mental bandwidth you just bought back. Keep questioning the algorithms and keep adapting. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.